Okay, I'm gonna kind of redo. I know I had this plan to do this. Uh, Reading the memorandum of Thomas P. McNamara, a U.S. attorney at the Eastern District of North Carolina, who wrote a memorandum to Carl W. Beckler, who is the chief at the General Crime Section of the Criminal Investigation Division at the Department of Justice. Uh, the one I recorded previously, I never posted because I'm not posting because I had a headache and I rambled too damn long. So I'm just gonna get this out of the way. I mean, basically, this memorandum is a U.S. attorney. I mean, they're trying to get. I mean, the CID's done all they could do. I mean, they continue sending stuff to the Justice Department and to the Eastern District of North Carolina and all that stuff. That justice that federal yeah that federal law court the federal courthouse at the Eastern District of North Carolina. The CID was basically continuing to send information stuff to them. The CID was to the Eastern District of North Carolina's courthouse, to the Justice Department, and the U.S. attorney named Thomas P. McNamara has gotten on it, and he wrote a memorandum that has a synopsis of the case, background of the accused, statements of facts, law of the case, statement of proof in relation of the elements to the offense, the undivulged or unabsolved evidence at the Article 2 to 32 investigation, probable defense or weak points in the government's position, and conclusion and recommendations. This was a memorandum written on June 26, 1973. Basically, the synopsis of the case, he goes through it. 3:42 a.m. on February 17, 1970. The telephone operator got a call. She was in Fayetteville. She notified for 544 the Fort Bragg. At the Fort Bragg, she notified Fort Bragg, the military police. There was a stabbing at 544 Castle Drive at Fort Bragg. Several MP patrols were dispatched to that location. Access to the apartment was locked but gained through the means of a utility room door, which leads directly into the master bedroom. Inside the quarters of the house, the military police found Captain Dr. Jeffrey R. MacDonald. Jeffrey MacDonald was clad only in pajama bottoms, laying on top of his wife, on the shoulder, laying on the shoulder of Colette, who was, and she was dead in the north and south bedrooms. They found Kimberly and Kristen MacDonald dead. Kimberly was age 5, Kristen was age 2. And, Jeffrey MacDonald told the military police that had arrived that 4 hippies had attacked him, killed his wife, killed his children, and that he was going into shock, that he had removed the knife from his wife's chest, and that he must be allowed to check his kids. MacDonald was transported to Womack Army Hospital and was treated for a 1 to 2 centimeter stab wound on the chest at the 7th intercostal space, which had caused a 20% collapse of the right lung. MacDonald was allowed to leave to attend the funeral of his family on the 21st day of February 1970. MacDonald gave several statements which contained both an abundance of facts and contradictions as to how the events occurred on the 16th and 17th, 1970. Opening up some pages. On April 6, 1970, the preliminary laboratory report of the results of the processing of the crime scene indicated that MacDonald may have staged the entire crime scene. From May to October of 1970, the military Article 32 hearings were conducted at Fort Bragg, North Carolina by Colonel Warren Rock for the specified purpose of determining whether the charges against Jeffrey R. MacDonald should be referred to a military court martial. This Article 32 hearing was a celebrated affair and was conducted in a questionable atmosphere. The hearing officer apparently applied an incorrect standard of proof beyond a reasonable doubt. The hearing officer did not recommend referring the charges to a court martial because he did not believe them to be true. And Captain MacDonald asked for and got a hardship discharge. At the time of the murders, MacDonald was 26 years old, Captain U.S. Army, Medical Corps. His physical condition was that of an athlete who regularly engaged in sports, boxed, ran, and made parachute jumps. In 1970, he weighed 175 pounds and was 71 inches in height. His background reveals an aggressive character and a propensity for marital infidelities, but no criminal behavior. His education was as follows. He attended Princeton University for pre-med, Northwestern University Medical School. He interned in surgery at Columbian Presbyterian Hospital in New York City. He volunteered for the United States Army and for an assignment to the Special Forces. All of his service in the latter was at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. The driving force of this man's life is to become a doctor. He achieved the goal despite personal obstacles. Prior to the events of February 7, 1970, Jeffrey R. MacDonald could appropriately be termed the All-American boy. Jeffrey R. MacDonald married Colette in his second year at Princeton. Both worked through high school, and both worked to get him through school and pay living expenses. She was pregnant at the time of their marriage. Captain MacDonald is a very intelligent, or former captain. MacDonald is a very intelligent and action-oriented. He is described as having a life drive or unsurmountable power. In addition, it has been said that his success is driving motivation within him. At 3:40 a.m. on February 17, 1970, a telephone operator with the Carolina Telephone Company at Fayetteville, North Carolina, received a telephone call from a man who repeated several times, "I want MPs." Name it's at 544 Castle Drive. The operator contacted the military police at Fort Bragg to get the caller to repeat the message to the military police. However, she was unable to get the caller to say anything and inform the MPs that she had received a call instructing her to send the military police and an ambulance to 544 Castle Drive. At 3:42 a.m., the caller came back on the line. In response to a question from the operator regarding what was wrong, he said, "I've been stabbed." The operator said this was told to her in a very faint voice, and she relayed this information to the military police at Fort Bragg. MP patrols were dispatched by radio to 544 Castle Drive. At about 3:50 a.m., the MPs arrived at 544 Castle Drive. Upon checking the front door, discovered it was locked. The MPs entered the apartment through the northeast rear entrance, which they found unsecured and open. The telephone operator kept the line open at 544 Castle Drive for about 15 minutes, and during this period of time, heard the military police patrol arrive at the address and her moving inside the residence. The MPs found Colette lying on her back on the floor of the east bedroom, which is the master bedroom, with Captain Jeffrey MacDonald lying on his stomach on top of his wife's shoulder. Captain MacDonald asked about the condition of his children and stated, "Oh Jesus, look at my wife. Oh Jesus Christ, look at my wife." Captain MacDonald further said, "Check my kids. How are my kids?" He asked for mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, then collapsed and was administered first aid. Colette MacDonald was apparently dead when the MPs arrived. The MPs also discovered the bodies of Kristen MacDonald, age 2, in her bed in the north bedroom, and Kimberly MacDonald, age 5, also in her bed at the south bedroom. The MPs at the scene placed a radio call for medical assistance. Lieutenant Joseph Polk was the MP duty officer on the 17th of 1970 and was the first MP to arrive at 544 Castle Drive. Lieutenant Polk stated that he looked into the doorways of the north and south bedrooms and assumed the children were dead. There was no movement thereafter. Lieutenant Polk entered the living room, at which he noticed a dim lighting. Lieutenant Polk stated that after administering first aid to Captain MacDonald, he interviewed him to obtain information as to what occurred. Captain MacDonald, or former Captain MacDonald, related at that time while sleeping on the couch in the living room, he's awakened and had found and he said he found intruders in his home standing at the foot of the couch upon which he was lying. He also heard his wife screaming for help. MacDonald further related that these intruders had attacked him, beat him with a club, stabbed him, and that he had been rendered unconscious, and upon waking up, found the intruders gone and his family dead. MacDonald furnished a sketchy description of the intruders at that time. In general, he described them as two male Caucasians, one male Negro, which was terms used at the time. Don't start getting all up in arms about it. This is their words and not mine. I don't mean to rant, but this is their words, not mine. And one female Caucasian holding a candle, or the words "acid is groovy, rain is groovy, kill the pigs." I thought you just said "acid is groovy, kill the pigs," or I mean, it's just another thing that gets changed so much. And she says something about acid and rain. And then another time she says acid is groovy, hit him again. He had told so many half-assed stories that don't match up to what happened, that you damn well know he did it, but. And I'm rambling, so. Anyway, Sergeant Richard D. Trevere of the Military Police Battalion was the first MP to enter the rear door, observed the victims in the east bedroom. There were two telephones in the apartment, one located in the east bedroom and the other one on the wall just inside the kitchen. When he first observed the telephone in the east bedroom is lying off its cradle, lying on the dresser, Sergeant Trevere picked up the telephone receiver using his index finger and thumb, attempted to call for assistance. He thereafter placed the handset on the cradle and subsequently placed the handset into the dangling position. There were no fingerprints found on either the telephone, and a few smudges were found on the telephone in the east bedroom. The word pig was written on blood in the headboard of the east bedroom. There was also a wet spot that appeared to be urine in the center of this bedroom on the bed. Numerous fibers of Jeffrey R. MacDonald's pajama top were located in the master bedroom and underneath the body and between the headboard and mattress of the bed. Also located in the east bedroom were fragments of a rubber glove. By the time Captain MacDonald was removed from his apartment via the wheeled stretcher, there was approximately 10 to 12 persons in the apartment, including MPs, CID, medical personnel. As MacDonald was being taken from the apartment, he was made a point of saying several times that he had removed it from his wife's chest the knife found on the floor in the east bedroom in front of the bureau. The body of Colette MacDonald was located in the east bedroom, found lying on the floor on her back. Yeah. Basically, she was dead. She was had a piece of blue material, which was a pajama top shirt that was torn, and it was the pajama top of Captain MacDonald. The lower section of her body had a white towel under it. Both of these items bore blood stains, and the autopsy of Colette MacDonald revealed that she had 7-incised knife wounds and 21 puncture-type ass-pick stab wounds on her chest. There were 9 knife wounds in her neck, some penetrating the trachea and the thyroid, which caused internal bleeding on Colette's head. On Colette's head, there were 6 blunt force trauma. There were 6 blunt force trauma blows to the head, to the skull. The most significant was the one on her nose, which caused a small skull fracture. Her arms were bruised, lacerated, both arms were broken, probably with the blunt instrument. The stab wounds in the chest were fairly perpendicular to the body. There were no narcotics found in the body. Some hairs in blonde light brown, 4 to 5 inches in length, were intertwined in her right hand. She was 4 to 5 months pregnant at the time of her death. I'm just opening up pages where I can read them. The torn blue-colored pajama top, later identified as the garment of Jeffrey R. MacDonald, bore large blood stains identified as mostly type A of Colette MacDonald's blood type AB, Kimberly MacDonald. Two stains known identified as type B, that of Jeffrey R. MacDonald. The white towel located across Colette MacDonald's abdomen revealed several blood stains, which suggested that some of the body or some bloody object or objects had been wiped off on the towel. The stains were later identified as type A, same as Colette, and type AB, same as Kimberly MacDonald, because Colette MacDonald's feet were blue. Was a blue-green color throw rug on one corner of the rug folded over. Lying on a folded corner of the rug was a pocket from the blue pajama top. As previously mentioned, the pocket bore small blood stains of type A blood, but was virtually free of blood stains when compared to the remainder of the blue pajama top. Jeffrey R. MacDonald in his statements has related that his smaller daughter Kristen had urinated in the bed in the east bedroom. This was the reason he was sleeping on the couch and not in the bed. In the master bedroom, the laboratory analysis of the urine stains shown that Kristen with type O blood could not produce this stain, and that it was made by somebody with either A-type blood, Colette, or AB blood, Kimberly MacDonald, and most probably AB blood, but the deterioration of the specific blood type factor for B and AB blood. On the floor at the foot of the bed of the east bedroom near the hallway door was a bloody on the floor at the foot of the bed in the east bedroom and near the hallway door was observed a bloody bedspread sheet, which was apparently had been pulled from the bed in this bedroom. The sheet bore blood stains AB, which is Kimberly MacDonald's blood. The blood stains on the bedspread were type A, Colette MacDonald. An examination of the sheet revealed the finger sections of surgeon's latex glove bearing A-type blood, Colette MacDonald. Additionally, on the white rug in front of the master bedroom, the large double dresser, a paring knife with the name Geneva Forge, a brand of knife, stained with A-type blood. Colette MacDonald's blood was found on it. Kimberly MacDonald was found in bed in the south bedroom. The light was off in this room. When Kimberly MacDonald was found first, she was dressed in a nightgown covered and tucked in with bed covers. Her face bore evidence of a severe beating. Stab wounds were noted in the right side of her neck. A large amount of blood was present. A fiber from MacDonald's pajama shirt was found wrapped in Kimberly MacDonald's bedclothes. Kristen MacDonald was discovered lying on her bed. Let me go over that again. That her face bore evidence of a severe beating. On the right side of her neck, a large amount of blood was present. A fiber from MacDonald's pajama shirt was found wrapped in Kimberly's bedclothes. Okay, I got all that right. Kristen MacDonald was discovered lying in her bed, dressed in pajamas, with the lower portion of her body covered with the bedding. Her room was dark as well. Kristen's body bore stab injuries to the chest, back, and one of her hands. She was observed lying on her left side, and about 1 inch from her mouth was a plastic baby bottle containing what was later identified as chocolate milk in it. The rubber nipple of the bottle pointed upwards towards her face. A finger as well. A fiber from Jeffrey MacDonald's pajama top was found underneath Kristen's fingernail. When first viewed, the bodies of the children suggested that they were killed in their beds, that they were asleep or unconscious, and that they had not been moved. These suggested the evidence by the fact that they were covered with bedding, and Kristen, besides being in the position of a sleeping child, had a plastic baby bottle in her mouth. Kimberly also laid in a position of sleep and had the bed covers tucked around her and under the body. Which I hate to ramble and rant on this, but yeah, intruders that break into a house and kill people, they're just going to tuck the kids right in bed. Yeah, I'm really buying that. The only concentration of blood around Kimberly at first sight was that of which was around her face and normally would have been there if she had not been moved. Upon closer examination, it was seen that blood was on the tips of her hair, which were not close enough to any of the bedding in her injuries to cause such a contamination unless she was in an entirely different position when the injuries were inflicted. Additionally, when her body was moved, signs of a heavy blow were located on the left side of her face. Since a substantial amount of Kimberly's blood was located on the floor in the bedroom, the master bedroom, this blow was probably sustained in that room before she was moved back to her room and placed in the bed. Additionally, support for the observation that Kimberly McDonald was transported from the east bedroom to which is the master bedroom, to her own room after sustaining the injuries is found in the fact when the bed covers were removed. Kimberly McDonald's body, by investigator, threads were found from Jeffrey R. McDonald's torn pajama top that there were found in the sheets near her body. There is no evidence that Kristen was in any other location but her own bed while the murderous activities were taking place around her. There were large pools of blood, type O, Kristen McDonald's blood found in the floor adjacent to her bedside. These blood pools were not in the location where they have. There were large pools of O-type blood, which is Kristen McDonald's blood, found on the floor adjacent to her bedside. And these blood pools were not in a location where they would have been if she had not been picked up and held over the side of her bed. This activity then took place when she was probably receiving the stab wounds to her back and while she was bleeding heavily from the chest wounds inflicted on her. Kristen did not sustain any blows from a blunt force object similar to the one used in the assault on Colette and Kimberly McDonald. And her wounds consisted of stab wounds and during sleep and the bed covers tucked around her back and under her body. The only concentration of blood around Kimberly and her basically the wounds to Kristen, mainly the death. Kristen McDonald was killed by stab wounds. I'm sorry for that, but the physical medical evidence revealed that all the stab wounds received by the female victims were inflicted straight into the body. Okay, am I on the Okay, I'm on the right page. Okay. The physical medical evidence revealed that all the stab wounds received by the female victims were inflicted straight into the body and did not appreciably deviate in the direction that this indicates that the assailant was positioned directly over the individual body as it lay prone, that the instrument inflicting the stab wounds was moved directly in a straight downward movement into the body. There were no slash type wounds to any of the female victims and this indicated that all the victims were immobile when stabbed. On the top sheet covering Kristen McDonald, a large concentration of A-type blood, Colette McDonald's blood type, was found in the pattern of direct bleeding rather than contamination from an object soaked with A-type blood. Additionally, on the wall, just above the bed of Kristen, splattered blood spots, again, the same type of blood type, Colette McDonald's blood type, were located in a pattern suggesting that these spots were sprayed when moved from a bloody moving object in a downward direction towards the bed. The location and quantity of blood and of the type of the location and quantity of blood of the type of Colette McDonald in this room dictates the conclusion that Colette was present in the room and was bleeding heavily onto the bed of Kristen prior to Kristen sustaining any bleeding injuries. This further evidenced by the fact that the clothing of Colette bore no blood of the same type of Kristen. Two footprints determined that similar to be a footprint of Jeffrey R. MacDonald's left foot were located inside Kristen's room on the floor in a pattern indicating departure from the room when the prints were made. On another print was determined to have been made with a type or AB blood, and the other print was identified as being made by A blood. Okay. God. Anyway. Okay, the two footprints, yeah. One of them was made, yeah. One of them, yeah. One was similar to fit the footprint of Jeffrey R. MacDonald's left foot. It was a bloody footprint. Were located in Kristen's room. One of them, the pattern indicating departure. One print was determined to be made in A blood or AB blood, and the other print was identified as having been made with A type blood. No A or AB blood in any concentration. Okay. No A or AB blood in any concentration was located on the floor of Kristen's room. Therefore, in order for Jeffrey R. MacDonald to pick up the quantity of blood, such blood types to leave a print in the room, he would have had to be stripped directly onto the bedding of the body of Colette, or onto the bundle of bedding previously mentioned as being having located in during the crime scene in search of the master bedroom. During the living room was in good order except for the front of the couch where Jeffrey MacDonald claimed he was sleeping when the attack on him took place. The couch was located against the east wall of the living room. In front of the couch and the overturned coffee table was resting on its side. On top of the assortment of magazines lying on the floor, on top of the surface of the coffee table, there was a substance determined to be candle wax on the consistency. Okay. On the top surface of the coffee table was a substance determined to be candle wax of a consistency of a small birthday candle. Additional wax droppings were found in the south bedroom, a few feet away from a few feet west of the coffee table. On the living room floor was a flower pot, which first noted by the investigators was on its side, but apparently uprighted by one of the medical personnel. A search of the couch the surrounding area revealed no blood evidence. However, a pair of eyeglasses, property of Jeffrey R. MacDonald, were located on the floor near the living room window, and a small spot of O-type blood, Kristen MacDonald's blood type, was located on the outer lens. Type AB blood, Kimberly MacDonald's blood type, was located on the top edge of an Esquire magazine, and it was located at the edge of which was located on the edge of the coffee table that was overturned. The coffee table that was found that morning that was turned over was all the magazines. There was magazines underneath it and different things underneath it, and they were setting underneath where the coffee table fell, and those things should have fell away. Is one of the things that the CID figured out and was fixated on. But just rambling on about it, it was just there should have been more destruction. There should have been more of a mess in there. Like there's absolutely no. I mean, certain things like the lamp isn't knocked off on there, off of the end table. There should have been things disturbed in the dining room, which was next to the living room. but I'll probably use the diagram, the drawing, the sketch of the house. I'll probably use that for the background for this audio, for this video. Basically, if that table would have been, it would appear, yeah. If the cable, if the coffee table was knocked over as related by Captain Jeffrey R. or former Captain MacDonald, Jeffrey R. MacDonald, it would appear that the glue bottle would be on the west side of the table instead of the east side. In addition, it is hard to understand how the magazines landed under the coffee table's edge. It is even harder to explain how a MacDonald slipper came to rest at the top of the leg of the coffee table. The coffee table is top heavy, and numerous tests conducted to see if it would stay on its side when knocked over. It always fell on its top, with one exception when it hit the leg of a nearby chair and landed on its side. The dining room appeared to be in good order, no signs of a struggle. There were Valentine's Day cards sitting on the table in the dining room and remained undisturbed. The china cabinet contained glassware, and china was also undisturbed. The throw rug in the dining room area of the type which would be moved easily was rested on, and the wax surface of the floor. When observed after the killings, the throw rug had not been disturbed. The kitchen was situated off to the west of the dining room. The main ceiling light in the kitchen was on. A wall telephone was located just inside the kitchen entrance on the east wall of the kitchen. The telephone receiver was off the hook and was hanging downward, resting on the floor of the kitchen. Several blood stains were found on the floor near the kitchen in the entranceway. The stains had apparently been deposited there by some object, with blood later identified as the same type of Colette MacDonald A and type AB Kimberly MacDonald's blood type. Several other blood spots later identified as type B, that of Jeffrey R. MacDonald, was located on the floor of the kitchen. On the floor of the kitchen, in that area, in front of the kitchen sink, storage cabinet, and they found 8 pairs of brand of Perry latex surgical gloves, and they're sealed. They were sealed in packages. They were no open packages were located in the crime scene search, nor were any surgical gloves located in any other areas of the residence. A similar pair of latex gloves was found located and locked outside a storage shed, and these gloves bore no blood evidence, but did contain paint stains. The type as the paint located in Kimberly MacDonald's. The same type of paint is located in Kimberly MacDonald's bedroom on the shelving. The plumbing of the residence was searched from the toilets in the main utility room, bathrooms, and from the kitchen sink area to a point at the juncture of the main sewage line in the rear of the residence. These efforts did not produce any pieces of latex gloves. I have previously heard that the toilet in one end of the bathroom was found to be clogged by the investigators, and this situation was corrected by the Army through the services of a plumber. A most unfortunate error. At 5:58 a.m. on February 17, 1970, Captain William P. Neal, professional officer of the day, Womack Army Hospital, arrived at the scene and was escorted through the residence to examine the MacDonald bodies of the family, and he was cautioned not to disturb any bodies unless it was absolutely necessary. He entered Christian MacDonald's bedroom. When he reached the body, rolled it over on its back and inspected both the chest and back, and declared she was dead. He then replaced Kristen placed Kristen's body in nearly the same position as before, covered it with the bedclothes, a little more than had been covered. Dr. Neal examined Kimberly MacDonald, pronounced her dead without moving or disturbing her body in any manner. The evidence is a little unclear in regard to whether Dr. Neal or one of the other medical personnel moved the body of Colette MacDonald. I suspect she was moved slightly. MacDonald's defense at the Article 32 hearing contended that since Mrs. MacDonald had been moved, there was a valid reason for MacDonald's pajama shirt and fibers to be underneath her body. The upper portion of the body of Colette MacDonald was covered in part by the torn pajama top of Jeffrey R. MacDonald's. Captain MacDonald, former Captain MacDonald, subsequently related that while being attacked in the living room, his assailants tore his pajama top off, pulled it over his head, and when he regained consciousness, he found the pajama top wrapped around his wrists with the cuff portion of the sleeve still intact. A search of the living room area, which Jeffrey R. MacDonald identified as the place where he struggled with his assailants and where his shirt was supposedly torn, did not produce any threads, fibers from the shirt. MacDonald also stated he regained consciousness in the living room area after the attack, and he went directly to the body of his wife, taking the torn pajama top from his wrist and placed it over the chest of his wife, Colette. After he removed the paring knife, he found the protruding from her chest when the body of Colette MacDonald was being moved. Okay, he found the knife. He says he removed the knife that was in Colette's chest. When the body of Colette was being moved to the stretcher, a dark object protruding from the blood stain on the rug where her head had rested was located. On closer inspection, it was a seam thread from a blue pajama top on top of Jeffrey R. MacDonald. From the pajama top of Jeffrey R. MacDonald. A subsequent detailed search of the body outline of the area where Colette had MacDonald laid revealed a great number of additional threads. Additional threads and fibers were located in other areas of the east master bedroom, which was the east bedroom, master bedroom, and thus an examination was made of the struggle area in the living room and identified by Jeffrey R. MacDonald. This particular examination was made utilizing a magnifying glass, and no threads or fibers were located in the immediate area of the couch. One thread was located in the hallway about 3 feet from the living room. A large amount of 30 to 40 threads were found in the outline of Colette MacDonald's body where she laid. A large amount was also located and scattered all over the rug in the master bedroom. Several threads were located on the floor behind the headboard and of the master bedroom, directly under the location where the word pig had been printed on the headboard in blood. In addition, previously mentioned that a number of threads were located under the bedding in the south bedroom of Kimberly MacDonald's bedroom. It was in her bed. One fiber from the pajama top was located under Kristen's fingernail during the autopsy. It can be opinion that the pajama top was most likely torn in the east bedroom, which was the master bedroom, that Colette MacDonald subsequently sustained injuries and fell to the floor, covering some of the threads and fibers. The crime scene failed to reveal any evidence of the intruders to the residence. No evidence of a forced entry to the residence was located. Additionally, a large amount of medical supplies was found, like hypodermic syringes, and assorted surgical equipment was stored in an open closet but was undisturbed during the incident. There were a number of valuable possessions of the MacDonald residence which were not disturbed and stolen during the incident. They weren't disturbed and they're stolen during the incident. And there's some redacted shit here on page 17. And on page 18 there's a redacted stuff here. The following synopsis of the facts is related to former Captain MacDonald to the FBI special agent, name redacted, on the 17th of February 1970, while still a patient at Womack Army Hospital in Fort Bragg. And more specifically detailed in the FBI file. I'm not reading off the name of that file. You can just read it off yourself if you want to. If you want to click on the link to read all this wonderful memorandum. And it's more a memorandum. It's a damn report. Captain MacDonald advised that he arrived at his residence about 5 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. Monday evening on the 16th of February from work after playing basketball with some members of his office. He stated he ate supper, then his wife Colette left to attend class at North Carolina State University Extension in Fort Bragg, North Carolina. He stated After his wife returned home from school, they watched television shortly before the Johnny Carson show, which came on 11:30 p.m. on Eastern time. Came on television. His wife took some medication to help her sleep and was about to 3 or 4 months pregnant. He had stated that his wife was lying on the floor watching television when his youngest okay. He stated that he and his wife were lying on the floor watching television, and his youngest daughter Kristen started crying. He went to her room, at which time Kristen stated she did not want to sleep alone. In the meantime, his wife had gone to bed. MacDonald, believes he went to the kitchen and got his daughter a bottle of chocolate milk, went back to her room. He stated that he took his daughter to the master. He then stated he took his daughter to the master bedroom where his wife was in bed and placed Kristen in the bed with his wife. Captain MacDonald later estimated that this was about 12:30 to 12:45 a.m., February 17, 1970, and after putting his daughter in bed with his wife, he returned to the living room, watched television again. He stated after the Johnny Carson show was over at 1 a.m., he had read 50 pages of a novel and then did the dishes in the kitchen. He stated at approximately 2 a.m. to 2:30 a.m. he went into the master bedroom to go to bed. He noticed his daughter had wet the side of her bed. We've heard all this before. He took her to her room. He laid down at 2:30 in the morning, and then he was awoken by screams of his wife screaming, "Jeff, Jeff, Jeff, help me. Jeff, why are they doing this to me?" He stated that he heard his older daughter, Kimberly, yelling, "Daddy, Daddy, Daddy," over and over again. He stated he sat up on the couch, on his elbows, at which time he saw people at the foot of the couch. One was a Negro. Those are their words, not mine. On the far left, walking toward him, he observed two white males at the foot of the couch, and then one white male moved to the side, and he saw a white female between the two males, appeared to have a lighted candle in front of her in her hands. He stated that before he could say anything, the Negro was, their words not mine, was next to him, which a club in both hands raised over his head. He stated he put up his arms to defend himself, was hit on the arm, across the forehead. He recalls that just before he was hit on the forehead, by the Negro, their words not mine, he heard the white female chanting, "Kill the pigs, acid and rain are groovy man, acid is groovy." He was then hit on the forehead, fell back onto the couch while the white female continued her monotone chanting. I'm sorry, I'm laughing at that because it's such a bullshit lie about these hippies coming in, and they, I'm not gonna do a rambling rant on it. I'm just saying the fact. I mean, what I'm reading off speak for themselves. What you can read speaks for itself. That he did it. They did. He did it. No one else did. Yada yada yada. MacDonald stated he began fighting with the knee. Their words, not mine. He grabbed the club from the person's hands, from the black man's hands. We're gonna say the correct term, in order not to be hit again. And he pulled the club down toward him. At which time he observed the black man, who was wearing a army fatigue jacket with sergeant stripes, E6. He stated that the black man's hands were very wet, very slippery, and while he was fighting with the black man, he would continue getting hit in the side, and shortly thereafter felt a severe pain in his side, in his chest. He stated that the black man and the white male continued fighting with him, and he pushed them away toward the hallway, with the black man and the white man tearing at his pajama top. He stated the pain in his chest became quite severe, and he fell in the floor in the hallway on the steps, basically. And MacDonald recalls when he was falling, he saw the female in high brown or dark fade leather boots. He saw her knees showing about above the boots. He noticed the knees and the boots were wet but not bloody. He passed out in the hallway. He also recalls while fighting with the black man and the white males in the hallway, the white male had what appeared to be a knife or an ice pick in his hands. He stated he had observed the shiny blade but cannot say what type of instrument was in his hands. Captain MacDonald stated he does not know how long he was unconscious, but when he awoke, he was on the floor in the hallway with his pajama top torn, bloody, twisted around the wrists. He stated he got up on the floor, went into Kimberly's room, and saw blood all over the bed. He felt a pulse, a heartbeat, and could not find he felt for a whole pulse and a heartbeat, but could not find could not find either. He then went into Kristen's room, found no pulse or heartbeat. Dr. MacDonald stated he used the telephone in the bedroom. He stated he got on the telephone, called the MPs, and they said he needed an ambulance and MPs at 544 Castle Drive. He stated the operator started asking him questions such as social security number, reason for ambulance, etc. And he laid the telephone down and returned to his daughter's bedrooms, unable to find life in their bodies. So he went to the kitchen and called the operator and repeated his previous comments. He estimated he talked for about 5 minutes until he heard a male voice on the telephone and heard voices in the background. He stated that the male voice said, make that ASAP. MacDonald stated he returned to his wife, pulled the knife from her chest, and threw it to the side and attempted mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. See, he was moving things around. He said he went to the wife's room first, the master bedroom. Not the kid's bedroom, but he went to the... Yeah. Or was that them stating it this way, or did he just change the events around? I mean, not if they change the events around doesn't change anything really, but if Jeffrey R. MacDonald changed the events around, then it means he can't keep a consistent frickin' story. I mean, unlike Richard Trevere, who's told the same story that he told the Article 32 hearings in 1970, he maintained that same story in May of 2025 when he was on Jim Blackburn's YouTube channel and did an interview for Jim Blackburn on his YouTube channel. But I'm just filling out time instead of just reading this off. Okay. Basically, the next thing he remembers is being awakened by a military policeman as he was laying over his wife's body. Captain MacDonald expanded and changed slightly his statements in regard to the events of the night of the 16th to 17th of 1970. In essence, his story is still the same, but has some discrepancies. An example, during his early interviews, he did not tell anyone that he had entered the kitchen after finding his family dead, other than to use the telephone at the kitchen doorway. Then, at the Article 32 hearing, after the government presented evidence that his blood type was found in the kitchen near the sink, MacDonald said that he probably entered the kitchen to wash his hands out of instinct. In addition, MacDonald did not say anything about having received 8 to 10 prick wounds in his abdomen until the Article 32 hearing. This fact was not noted by any of his treating by the physicians in law. The case of a criminal indictment is sought in this matter. The proposed charge to be presented to the grand jury would consist of 3-count indictment charging Jeffrey R. MacDonald with premeditated murder of Colette S. MacDonald by means of striking her in the head with a club, stabbing her in the chest with a knife, and in violation of Title 18 USC Section 1111 4 ones. I hope I did 4, but it was 11. Yeah, it was 1111. The second count would charge Jeffrey R. MacDonald with the premeditated murder of Kimberly K. MacDonald by the means of attacking her in the head with a club, stabbing her in the chest in the neck with a knife in violation of Title 18 USSC Section 1111. And the same with Kristen MacDonald for the premeditated murder of her, with the same Title 18 and the same section, obviously From the facts of this case, much of the case will center around the circumstantial evidence. This area of the law will necessitate a detailed search of the analysis prior to the commencement of further actions. Generally, however, it is felt that circumstantial evidence is entitled to no less than considerable than direct testimony, and whenever can or could be established by the testimony may be established by circumstantial evidence. The general trend is to be liberal in the admission of the circumstantial evidence if it will shed light on the crime which was committed in secret. There's different titles and court cases that they're being referenced. You can read, if you decide to read the memorandum by Thomas P. McNamara. There are many areas of legal theory which should be considered in making the determination as to the probability of getting to the jury. Some of these are: what quantum of evidence will defeat the motion for a directed verdict, the charge of to the jury, evidentiary weight to be accorded prior to the inconsistent statements, negative evidence. This is intended to mention the complex legal theories which must be discussed and weighed prior to initiating a proper proposed indictment. Much consideration and thought has been given to this matter by the attorneys of this office. We will, however, need additional assistance from the Department of Justice in order to specifically evaluate and determine the likelihood of prevailing on the law of this case. Statement of proof: relation to the elements of the offense. The government must provide beyond a reasonable doubt that Jeffrey R. MacDonald, and not a group of hippies, was responsible for the murders of Colette, Kimberly, and Kristen MacDonald. MacDonald, on the other hand, must have the jury believe that 4 to 6 hippies entered his quarters on Fort Bragg, and they had numerous other quarters to choose from. Entrance to the residence was gained without force, without awakening the occupants of his quarters or the nearby quarters of neighbors. The hippies obtained their weapons from the residence before waking MacDonald. A violent struggle took place between MacDonald and 4 assailants in the living room of his quarters without disrupting this site to a measurable degree. This struggle, which allegedly involved the use of the same weapons that were used on the other members of the family, did not result in any significant injuries to Jeffrey R. MacDonald. The hippies then brutally killed the other members of his family but left him alive. Colette, Kimberly, and Kristen were discovered by MacDonald upon regaining consciousness in the respective rooms. That his sworn testimony concerning his actions in that house, the MPs were for the purpose of trying to give medical aid and not an attempt to tamper with evidence. The absence of physical evidence, where physical evidence would all in likelihood existed if the story were in fact true. If both the government and defense began with the same starting point, that on the night of the 16th and 17th of February, Colette and her children were killed at 544 Castle Drive, Fort Bragg, and that Jeffrey R. MacDonald is known to have been there at the time of the murders, then either the story of the hippies is true or Jeffrey R. MacDonald made it all up, and if he is lying about the hippies, it can only be for one reason: to hide his own guilt. The government can prove that the events as described by Jeffrey R. MacDonald did not and could not occur the way he relates. MacDonald's rendition of this assault and his movements to the house has evolved as his need to invent facts has become more demanding. He was not always aware of the significance of the particular question. His answers as to what he did in a particular room at a particular time forced upon him to invent more and more acts and observations at this time of this sequence. His sequence of events and movements have been crystallized by sworn testimony and tape-recorded interviews based on physical evidence which was not known at the time of the Article 32 hearing, and which will be the subject of another section in this memorandum. It can be proven that either he is lying about his actions in the house before and after the murders. It can be theorized that a fight between Colette and Jeffrey R. MacDonald originated in the bedroom of the residence, that a fight accelerated from punching situation to a bludgeoning of family member to stabbing of Colette, and that Colette, while still alive and bleeding, fought MacDonald it can be demonstrated that MacDonald and only MacDonald placed the children in their respective beds and Colette in the master bedroom after they were all killed. That MacDonald can be shown to be lying about several physical steps he took in the house, and his hippie story can be greatly damaged, if not entirely impeached, by gradual introduction of new evidence coupled with prior testimony, thereby destroying his credibility. It is firmly believed that those familiar with the MacDonald conduct during the Article 32 familiar with MacDonald's conduct during the Article 32 hearing, that he will take that stand. His psychological makeup is that he must play a role in any trial, and if he takes the stand, there are at least two items of physical evidence which can only be explained in one way, and that is he fought with Colette and then he moved the bodies from room to room. It is believed that used in cross-examination, this evidence would negate any reasonable doubt in the minds of the jury. It could, of course, be more effective if introduced as part of the government's case in principle. This memorandum will discuss the salient evidence room by room basis. Explaining the living room, basically, you're sleeping on it basically says you're sleeping on the living room, in the couch on the living room, because Kristen wet the bed, which we know Kristen wasn't in there. It was finally determined that she was not in there. It was Kimberly who probably wet the bed. He was awakened by the four hippies. Allegedly, the pajama top was torn and pulled over his head when he was attacked and he was stabbed by his assailants. MacDonald then lost consciousness, fell face down on the steps of the hallway leading to the master bedroom, and refuting it was Kimberly, not Kristen, basically, but the bed. I just said that. The blood in the master bedroom also showed that she was killed in that room. The coffee table, because of its center of gravity, cannot be knocked into position which it was found that morning. The debris on the floor, consisting of 10 magazines and a second stack consisting of boxes of children's cutouts and the Esquire magazine, could not have fallen under where the table fell. When tested, they invariably fell forward of the table. The magazines bear a fair finger impression in either Colette or Kimberly's blood. The slippers do not rest upon the front leg. The slippers do not rest on the front leg of the table unless placed there after the table has been set in the position in the dining room, which is immediately adjacent to the couch area of the living room, in which some of his attackers stood while the struggling happened. The throw rug lying parallel to the living room, the rug 6 inches north of the larger rug, was still perfectly parallel when the crime scene pictures were taken. If a struggle had actually taken place in this area, the rug would have slipped on the floor. On the top of the dining room, there's 2 candles and brass candlesticks holders were found. One candle tilted in its holder. It's inconceivable that these candles should remain upright if a struggle had taken place. There's an unstable china hutch containing crystal glasses that weren't disturbed. 5 dining room chairs in their normal places. The 3 Valentine's Day cards were standing on the sideboard in the living room and were undisturbed. Basically, they were standing up on this side table or end table in the dining room. Okay, I'm going to continue. This article contains a sequence in which a reporter is surrounded by a group of 4 hippies, this article contains a sequence in which a reporter is surrounded by a group of 4 hippies. It can be proven that MacDonald read, he was talking about the article of the Esquire magazine, basically. Because there's a frickin' page missing. Page 29, 28 is missing. And I guess it was talking about towards the end, the article of the Esquire magazine. Well, this article contains a sequence of which a report of which the Esquire magazine was about the Manson murders, and and basically that MacDonald read it 2 days before the murder, thought it was wild. The smearing of the smearing of the word pig and blood on the headboard, the master bedroom, may have been used to amp up that hippie theory explained by MacDonald by using some modus operandi as in the Charles Manson case. The Manson story is also contained in the same Esquire magazine. MacDonald was wearing his pajama top when he was attacked, which has been established that logically the number of wounds he received or the number of that he alleges he received should correspond to the holes in the pajama top. They don't. And a total of 48 puncture holes were located in the pajama top by the FBI laboratory. Lab experts contended that all these holes were made while the garment was stationary. The back panel contained 17 holes, 12 of which were generally located on the left back area, 5 of which are located in the right shoulder area of the pajama top. McNamara had no injuries to his back, and he never claimed to have any on his back. And the right front panel contained 9 holes, 6 of which were located in the upper right central chest area, 3 located in the lower right armpit area of the top, 21 holes in the upper arm near the shoulder area. On the right sleeve, a single puncture hole was located in the upper arm near the shoulder area of the left sleeve. The 2 of the cuts opposed to the puncture defects were located in the pajama top, one in the upper left shoulder area of the back panel, and the other in the lower right area of the front panel of the top. I hope you got all that. Jeffrey McNamara had the following injuries: a bump on the forehead, a stab between the 7th and 8th ribs on the right side. There's a cut in the right front panel of his pajama top to correspond the wound. 3 centimeters superficial laceration of his left rectus muscle area of the abdomen. The only cut in the front panel of the pajama top is on the lower right front panel. 4 to 5 ice prick marks in the upper chest to the left of the midline. The ice pick holes in the pajama top are on the right middle side of the slightly higher up of the V-neck. I'm sorry if you don't understand damn word. I don't either. I mean, not really. Well, it's just a superficial puncture wound in the wound of the upper left arm. In this wound only corresponds to the defect in the pajama top and is the only place in the entire pajama top where Jeffrey McDonald's blood was found. Except for this puncture on the mark of the left sleeve, none of the wounds that he actually had left any blood on. None of the other wounds that he actually left had any blood in the pajama top. There are no wounds in his back to correspond to either of the 17 puncture holes in the back panel or the cut in this panel. There was not one ice pick mark in his right arm. Although there are 21 ice pick holes in the right shoulder area of the pajama top, the FBI laboratory also reports that 5 holes have the general appearance of exit holes. There should not be any exit holes if he were in fact wearing the pajama top as he states when he was attacked. For the holes to be of the appearance of exit holes, then the ice pick would have had to pass through his body. In summation, the pajama top was not torn as described. The holes in it were made while stationary. The defects do not correspond to his wounds. His wounds did not correspond to the blood stains, except in one instance. The pajama top pocket, the pajama top, which bears Colette's blood, was torn off in the master bedroom and on the living room, and it can conclusively be shown that Colette's blood was on the left sleeve before the garment was ever torn. In addition, Jeffrey R. McDonald was observed to have scratch marks on the chest area above the V-neck, which was torn straight down the midline. Colette's left ring middle finger, when examined for fingernail scrapings, revealed the presence of human skin. However, this skin was apparently lost. It cannot be proven to be Jeffrey R. McDonald's. McDonald also testified that he felt the black man's gloved hands. They were wet and slippery since the gloves were found on the kitchen sink drain board, and did have Since gloves were found on the kitchen sink drain board and did have specks of blood on them, is it to be inferred that the black man placed them back on their normal position after the killings? The master bedroom, according to his April 6th statement, his first act after regaining consciousness was to walk down the hallway to the master bedroom. What he did with the pajama top is crucial credibility of his story. Perhaps MacDonald's motive was to account for the presence of Colette's blood on the pajama top, which may have gotten there during the struggle with Colette. He likely therefore invented the idea of treating her for shock, covering her with his pajama top. On the 6th of April, he stated, "I took it off as I was going to the bedroom. I took the knife out of my wife's chest, and I was trying to keep her warm." Also on the 6th of April, he stated, "I'm sure I took it off. I'm sure I took this thing off the first time. I didn't make a circuit with this. I didn't make a circuit with this jacket on. I don't think. I didn't make a circuit with this jacket on. I don't think. I came down the hallway and I went in. I took it off and got my hands free. Basically, sometime while I was in there the first time, I put it on my wife." What MacDonald did not likely know at this time was the pajama pocket on the pajama top had also been found and turned up at the bottom of the throw rug, resting by Colette's left foot. Consequently, his story changes when he is asked how Colette's blood got on the pajama top pocket, and how could the pocket have traveled down the hallway from the living room how could it travel down the hallway from the living room. And then at the Article 32 hearings, he testified that he dropped the pajama top on the bedroom floor after shaking it out, and then picked it up, placed it on Colette. However, 3 points in his story are fixed. The pajama top pocket was torn in the living room. The first room he went into was the master bedroom, and then he took the pajama top off and placed it on Colette's chest. MacDonald does not know that the laboratory report concludes that the blood on the left sleeve of the pajama top was on the garment before it was torn. MacDonald does not know that the laboratory report concludes that the blood on the left sleeve of the pajama top was on the garment before it was torn. It may be then reasonably concluded that a fight between Jeffrey R. MacDonald, and Colette MacDonald took place in the master bedroom, and it would be inescapable because the profusion of threads and fibers from the pajama top were found in the master bedroom in positions indicating that they were scattered about before Colette's body came to rest on the bedroom floor. In the master bedroom, threads and fibers identical to the type and color, denier, twist, and all other physical characteristics of the pajama top were found in the following locations: with 3 splinters from the club, which were found near the body outline of Colette on the bedspread of the east bedroom, from the mouth area of Colette, at the fracture side of the left forearm of Colette, under the underslide of the throw rug, in the sheet of the bed, on the pillowcases located on the bed beneath the body of Colette, under the trunk of the leg of Colette's body, near the left hand and arm, on the floor of near the east wall of the headboard, and where the word pig was written. There's threads found there on the rug near the north corner of the footboard of the bed. The footboard of the master bedroom is broken, and the club, which was allegedly used on Jeffrey R. MacDonald and definitely was used on Colette and Kimberly MacDonald, fits under the footboard between it, and a block of wood supports the box springs on the north end of the bed. So yeah, how would an intruder know that piece of wood would have been there, that 31-inch 2x2, that slat of wood? How would an intruder know that? However, this block of wood is slightly larger than the club, so the full weight of the bed rests on the block of the wood and not the club. Therefore, it is possible to pull the club from under the bedboard, since the fibers from his pajama top were found near this same north end of the footboard, there is at least some inference that which may be drawn. The club bears Colette and Kimberly's bloodstains were found outside the utility room. The club bears Colette and Kimberly's blood. The club, which bears Colette and Kimberly's bloodstains, was found outside the utility room, immediately to the right of the steps, basically outside where they were found that early morning by an MP and Robert Shaw, I think, or Franz Joseph Rebner, basically secured and kept them, and basically secured those objects. Which, yeah, I think I forgot which one testified, but they had a long testimony. But Bernie Siegel was playing his games. Yeah, basically, in order to get through the utility room, you must pass through the master bedroom. McDonald's immediately admitted looking out the back door, but emphatically denies going outside. The club was examined, found to contain fibers identical to those of Jeffrey R. McDonald's pajama top. McDonald was struck on the head, allegedly with the club, in the living room. But since no fibers were found in the living room, it is not credible that the fibers could have been picked up. It is not credible that the fibers could have been picked up in the living room, retained during the beating of Colette and Kimberly, and were still on the club when it was found outside. Basically, it's saying that it couldn't have happened had there been an attack in the living room, and then those same fibers being on Colette kept that those same fibers would have been on that wood during the beating of Colette and Kimberly, and were still found out in the club outside. Basically, yeah, McDonald says he was struck in the head, but no fibers were found. But since no fibers were found in the living room, it's not credible that he picked it up. That it could have been picked up in the living room. That the fibers could have been picked up in the living room, retained during the beating of Colette and Kimberly, and were still in the club when it's found outside. It is more believable that Jeffrey R. McDonald, while still wearing his pajama top, carried the club ice pick and paring knife to the back door, held the club under his arm while he opened the back door, and quickly tossed all three by the back steps of the master bedroom. Bottom sheet contains a urine stain. This urine stain indicates that the specific factor A, and A deterioration is a specific factor B, that is the type of A blood or AB blood, either Colette or Kimberly. Is definitely not Kristen's. It was Kimberly who was in the bed, because Kimberly was hit and killed in there. Was hit during the act of rage with a reflex blow to the right side of her face, and it jacked her face up bad. MacDonald has repeatedly testified that Kristen urinated on the bed. Kimberly suffered from a fractured nose, multiple blunt wounds to the right side of the head from the club, and then 8 to 10 penetrating incisional wounds in the neck. The incisional wounds were made at the right angles to the front of the neck. Kimberly's type AB blood, as well as Colette's type A blood, were found on the sheet of the floor in the master bedroom. It is also present in several spots of the hallway floor, and on the rug at the entrance to the bedroom. On the bottom side of the Hilton bath mat, which was covering Colette's abdomen, there are streaks of Kimberly's blood, indicating that some type of object covered with Kimberly's blood was wiped on it. MacDonald first stated to the FBI and CID agents who interviewed him at the hospital, that he had covered his wife with his pajama top and towel. On April 6th, he indicated that he may have gotten the towel from the linen closet and placed on Colette. By the time of the Article 32 hearing, he stated, "I remember I was looking for something. I was pulling at clothing piled in the chair across Colette, but I don't remember specifically picking something up and laying across her." Jeffrey R. McDonald Jeffrey McDonald's blood is present in three places: on the kitchen floor, the hallway bathroom, and the linen closet, sliding door immediate adjacent to the bathroom hallway. on on the top side of the Hilton bath mat are similar streaks, but in Colette's blood. Therefore, the blood in on the bath mat did not result from being in contact with Kimberly or Colette. It was not covering any of their bleeding wounds that were above the breastline, but rather having the knives wiped on it. The top sheet of the bedspread from the master bedroom were found on the floor in the master bedroom, the south entrance of the hallway. The sheet was as shown in the crime scene photos. Almost entirely covers the balled up bedspread. Inside the bedspread fibers from MacDonald's pajama top were found. The sheet bears large blood stains of AB blood and A blood, Kimberly's AB, and Colette's type A blood. Jeffrey McDonald's pajama top in the lower left center, the lower left area has Kimberly's AB blood on it. It would be prosecution's theory that the sheet and the bedspread were used to transport Kimberly and Colette MacDonald. The bedclothes were used to transport Kimberly from the master bedroom to her bedroom. The medical testimony that will show that Kimberly's injuries were so massive as to render her immediately comatose, if not dead, and therefore the presence of Kimberly's blood in Kristen's bedroom. If not dead, and therefore the presence of Kimberly's blood in Kristen's bedroom and the dining room, hallway, and the hallway, and the master bedroom can't be explained by her own movements. It can be shown that Kimberly was moved after receiving her injuries. The physical evidence in support of this case follows. Tips of Kimberly's hair on the right side of her head as she was found in her bed are bloody. However, there's no injury corresponding to these stains which would bleed upon these strands of hair. Meaning where she was laying at, there was blood on her hair at the tips of those hair at the ends, but there was no blood, but there was no actual blood stain under it. Okay. The blood stains on the right side of her face have two directions, one corresponding with gravitational force, and the other flowing uphill from the direction of the wound, which means she was moved because blood doesn't flow uphill. Kimberly's left wrist has a sharp line where the blood stain stops, indicating that her wrists were partially covered while direct bleeding fell on it. The child's wrist was not found in a position in her bed where it could have been subjected to direct bleeding. On the bottom sheet of Kimberly's blood beneath the covers, there was a thread of Jeffrey McDonald's pajama top. The thread was found on the north pillow, a splinter from the club. On the north walls, while flecks of Colette's and Kimberly's blood were found. That's probably when he went in there and whacked her on the head a second time. That's my theory. They whacked her in the head a second time and had her, because she was found on her side. She whacked on, and she took sustained a frickin' skull fracture. The bed cover, which was beneath the quilted bedspread. MacDonald testified that he took his pajama top off before entering Kimberly's bedroom. If that statement is true, then how does Kimberly's blood get on his pajama top? How do the threads and fibers from the pajama top get onto the bedclothes? MacDonald has testified that while he was being attacked by the black man while in the club, he at the same time heard Kimberly screaming, "Daddy, Daddy, Daddy." Can it be inferred that from the time the club is possibly being used in at least two different rooms on three different people simultaneously? No, it can't. The master bedrooms contained the fragments from a surgeon's latex glove. The glove had evidently been ripped off while being removed because Fragments were found on Colette's body on the bed, on the dresser, and or on near the rug near Colette's body. The fragments were compared by neutron activation and analysis with the Perry brand surgeon's glove found in the cabinet and the sink in the kitchen, and found to contain the identical trace elements in the front of this cabinet in the kitchen. For their floor, there are droplets of Jeffrey R. MacDonald's blood. They're also under the left portion of the kitchen sink. However, it's an insufficient to type. The use of the gloves by Jeffrey R. MacDonald is inferred because they're hidden in a location underneath the sink. The fact that despite the admitted presence of much blood on his hands, okay, the use of gloves by Jeffrey R. MacDonald is inferred because they're hidden they're in a location underneath the sink. The fact that despite the admitted presence of much blood on his hands and contained in his continued touching of objects, he left no bloody fingerprints anywhere in the house. Yeah, it's after he whacked Kristen, he went in there. He went in there into the kitchen and got gloves on, and then got the old hickory knife to stab her. Piece of shit. Yeah, that's the moment. The moment he decided to do that, that's when he became a piece of shit in my eyes. When he went in there and stabbed the little girl after she got the shit knocked out of her and probably dying anyway. For instance, he has testified that enough of my rambling rant. It's just pad out time. He testified that taking the knife from his wife's chest before washing his hands, he called an operator. Why then are neither blood nor fingerprints on the telephone? The significance of the bent paring knife, which was found in the master bedroom, is curious, contrasted to MacDonald's statements. In the position of Colette MacDonald is laying in relation to the position Jeffrey R. MacDonald is laying in relation to Colette's body, he could see that the bent paring knife near the base of the bedroom dresser. As MacDonald was being removed from the ambulance at Womack Army Hospital, he stated to the medic named Kenneth Gillespie that he had pulled the knife from his wife's chest. A few minutes later, MacDonald had again stated, this time in the presence of medic Michael Newman and Dr. Jacobson, tell the MPs and the CID that I pulled the knife from my wife's chest and threw it on the floor. The Geneva Forge paring knife has a 12-degree bend in the blade. The temper of the steel has considerable amount of give in it, and is extremely doubtful that it inflicted any of the wounds on Colette MacDonald, because that was that knife was dull. Colette MacDonald's hands were found to contain human hairs after eliminating the members of the family. Jeffrey R. MacDonald's hair samples were taken. The hairs were not found to be the same as the origin of Jeffrey R. MacDonald. However, he could not be eliminated as a possible source as a result of the hair samples. Yeah, this part's faded out. Well, I can't help that. It's illegible hair samples by the lab experts. Anyway, the light brown hairs found in Colette's left hand were compared with the hairs found on two additional brushes from the MacDonald residence. The hairs found in the brush located next to the body of Colette MacDonald was determined that the hairs found in all three brushes were similar in gross pigmentation and structure with each other, and with the light brown hairs found in the left hand of Colette MacDonald. Further, all of the hairs could have been from the same origin. Jeffrey MacDonald is the only member of the household with light brown hair, and since the black assailant and the blonde can be excluded, either it's Jeffrey MacDonald's hair in her hands, or one of the two white male hippies brushed his head with three separate hair brushes, and also had his hair pulled out by Colette MacDonald. There's more hair evidence, which narrows the possibility still further. A hair from Colette's head was found on the pajama top worn by Jeffrey R. MacDonald. Since MacDonald was sleeping in the same which since MacDonald was not sleeping in the same bed with Colette on the night of the 16th through the 17th of February, he would have likely have had to been in a physical contact with her on the night of the murder. Taken by itself, the hair evidence can be explained away, but it stretches still further to the credibility of the story. It would be the prosecution's aim to show that while Colette was believed to be unconscious by Jeffrey R. MacDonald, he was transporting Kimberly to her room, and while still holding Kimberly on the bed, MacDonald discovered that Colette had gone into Kristen's room. Colette was struck sitting on the side of Kristen's bed, and her body was then dropped on the bedding, which would transport Kimberly. Kristen was then stabbed while laying in bed. The physical evidence supports the theory in this way. Colette is known to have bled directly onto Kristen's bed before Kristen was stabbed. Colette did not bleed on the floor of Kristen's bedroom, and Colette's blood is spattered on the wall behind Kristen's bed, constant with a blow from a club. Okay, let me find my place. Okay. Kimberly's injuries would have precluded her from being ambulatory. Kimberly's blood is on Kristen's bedspread. Jeffrey R. MacDonald left two bloody footprints going out of Kristen's bedroom. One footprint is in Colette or Kimberly's blood. The other footprint is in Colette's blood. If there is no blood on the floor of these two types, and the footprints are leading out, not in, how did he leave those footprints? How could he he could only have gotten the bed on his feet by stepping on the bedding known to contain the blood types, or the bodies contained in bleeding. Okay, if there was no blood on the floor, of these two types and the footprints leading out, not in, how did he leave those footprints? He could only have gotten the blood on his feet by stepping on the bedding known to contain both blood types or the bodies contained in the bedding. Colette's clothing, as photographed in the master bedroom, shows that she had been picked up or dragged. The legs of her pajamas both pushed up to a point just below the knees, and her bare legs have blood smears on them that are not a direct result of bleeding. There is further evidence to show a movement of the children's bedroom. Both girls were found in a macabre position. The macabre position, which tends to show that they have been killed while sleeping. Kristen appears in the photo still to be drinking chocolate milk from a baby bottle. Kristen's blood indicates that she bled directly on the floor in her bedroom, and that she was one time hanging over the side of her bed. Under Kristen's fingernails is a fiber from Jeffrey R. MacDonald's pajama top, which he testified that he was not wearing when he went into Kristen's bedroom. In Kristen's bed, under the covers, a hair from Colette's head was found. In Kimberly's bed, on the purple bed cover which lay beneath the quilted comforter, is a hair from Kristen's head. Another is on the pillow, which also contains stains of Kristen's blood. And a mixture of Colette's and Kimberly's blood. Jeffrey R. MacDonald's hair is on the pillow in Kimberly's bed, and under the covers is a pubic hair from his body. Basically in the bathroom and kitchen, Jeffrey R. MacDonald's blood type, which is B, is present in only two rooms of the house. The hall bedroom and in the kitchen. It, it can also be shown that his injuries could have been self-inflicted while standing in front of the bathroom mirror. It is somewhat strange that the only other place where the blood is dropped is in the kitchen floor immediately in front of the cabinet where the rubber gloves were kept. It would appear that it would be difficult for him to explain the absence of his blood in any of the following places: living room, hall steps, the clothes on the halls, the the clothes on the hall steps, Colette's clothes, and in the entire master bedroom, Kimberly and her entire room, and Kristen and her entire room, the pajama top except for one spot on the left sleeve. The videotape of Jeffrey R. MacDonald's interview on the Dick Cavett show records his claim of having sustained 22 stab wounds. Either he is lying about the number of stab wounds, and this can be shown by an eyewitness testimony, or he doesn't bleed when he is stabbed. MacDonald emphatically stated that he went no further than the kitchen than the doorway by the phone. After presence of his blood became known, he testified that he may have compulsively washed his hands at the kitchen sink either before or after using the phone. It can be shown that the surgical scrub brush was used to clean his hands of blood. If his hands were free of blood, why didn't he leave any fingerprints on the phone in the kitchen on which he spoke for 5 minutes? It can be argued that since the blood on the Esquire magazine is either A or AB, and since the finger impressions contain no rigid lines, the rubber gloves were used to set up the living room. This can be corroborated by the fact that a piece of rubber glove located next to Colette's body also contains type A and AB blood. The undivulged and unabsolved evidence of the Article 32 investigation basically okay. Okay, undivulged and or unabsolved evidence. Okay, in this section we will highlight the physical evidentiary claims, items that were not presented at the Article 32 investigation or obstructed by the sheer volume of physical exhibits. Evidence introduced at the Article 32 hearing that the paint on the club matched the paint on other pieces of wood found in the wood well under the quarters. However, now it can be positively established that the club was once part of a piece of wood found in the south bedroom of the MacDonald quarters. The defense is unaware that the laboratory analysis of the urine stain found on the sheet in the master bedroom indicated that the specific blood factor antigen A, with a deterioration of the specific factor antigen B, type A, Colette, or AB. Okay. The defense was unaware of the laboratory analysis of urine stain found in the sheet in the master bedroom indicated the specific blood factor antigen A, with the deterioration of specific factor antigen B, A type Colette, A or AB Kimberly, not type O, is the type of blood type of Kristen. O is the blood type, which contains neither the specific factors A or AB. In other words, all of the MacDonald statements that Kristen wet the bed are false, including his sworn testimony. The neutron activation analysis of the fragments of the rubber gloves and conclude the ATF were not done until after the Article 32 hearing. This analysis showed that the Paraband gloves found in the sink were the same brand or the same kind found in the neutron activation analysis of the fragments of the rubber gloves conducted by the ATF laboratory was not done until after the Article 32 hearing, and this analysis showed that the Paraband surgical gloves found in the cabinet bench in the sink in the kitchen contained the same identical trace elements of the fragments of the rubber gloves found in the master bedroom. At the Article 32 investigation, MacDonald claimed that a speck of O-type blood on the outer lens of his eyeglasses could have got there when he was treated an automobile accident victim at Cape Fear Valley Hospital on the night of 15th and 16th, 17th of 1970. In February of 1970, however, MacDonald was professionally seen by Dr. F.W. Pierce, an optometrist at Fort Bragg on the 16th of February 1970, on the afternoon before the murders. If there had been blood on the lens, the optometrist would have noticed it, or since optometrists routinely clean lenses during an examination, it is highly unlikely that a speck of blood would have remained there after the office visit. MacDonald's pajama top was introduced at the Article 32 hearing. However, no effort was made to correlate the types of locations of the blood and the stains with the injuries allegedly inflicted on MacDonald. On the July 2nd, 1971, the FBI laboratory was received and indicated the locations of the 48 puncture holes in the pajama top, and the absence of torn areas surrounding the holes in the pajama top indicates that the garment was stationary while the holes were made. The torn condition of the pajama top indicates that the force was exerted downward and to the right, facing the front of the garment, or the person wearing the garment upon spun to the right and away from the left portion of the V-neck while securely held. This is consistent with Colette clutching and scratching at Jeffrey R. MacDonald while she was being bludgeoned, rather than an assailant pulling the pajama top over his head and around his wrist. MacDonald has consistently maintained that he dropped or threw the pajama top somewhere in the vicinity of Colette's body and later covered her chest with the pajama top at the pajama top, and this activity accounts for the presence of blood on it. The FBI report states that large blood stains were located on the left shoulder, left sleeve of the pajama top, and were on before the garment was torn. Of the 27 tests for blood on the pajama top, only two revealed blood type other than A or AB. A small stain of B type B blood located on the left elbow, and a stain of AB blood on the lower front panel. Therefore, Colette's blood was on the left sleeve in a location consistent with the hypothesis that she tore the left front panel of the pajama top before the garment was torn. MacDonald had scratch marks on his chest in the area where the pathologist removed and the pathologist removed a piece of skin from under Colette's bloody fingernail. In addition, Kimberly's type blood, AB blood, is on the front panel of the pajama top. However, MacDonald maintains that he took off the pajama top, left it in the master bedroom before he ever entered Kimberly's room. The pajama top pocket became an issue at the Article 32 investigation as its location near Colette's foot, but the fact that the specks of Colette's blood are on the pocket are inconsistent with the thorough soaking of the panel from which the pocket was torn and was never brought out. The significance of the bloody footprints as to the identity of the maker, the location, and blood type was overlooked by the Article 32 investigation, and the footprints are located near the entrance of Kimberly's bedroom but are inside the door frame and pointed towards the exit. The left footprint, positively identified as being made in A-type blood in the lab report. The significance of the footprints is follows. Jeffrey R. MacDonald was known to be barefoot the night of 16th and early morning of the 17th of February 1970. There is no A-type blood, which is Colette, or AB blood, Kimberly's blood type, in Kristen's O-type, who's type O, in her bedroom, where MacDonald could have picked up enough blood to cover both feet and track it out of the bedroom. There is no way that he could have tracked out the blood if he didn't track it in, unless he stepped directly on the bodies of Colette or Kimberly, which when they were transported in the sheet from the master bedroom. Colette is known to have bled directly on Kristen's bed and to have flecks of blood on the wall opposite Kristen. These flecks of blood are consistent with spattering of blood after being struck with a club. This would obviously lead to the speculation that the bloody sheet found in the master bedroom was in fact in Kristen's room, and MacDonald stepped on it or on the bodies of Colette or Kimberly and exited the room with the blood still on his feet. Perhaps the overriding problem with prosecuting this case are basically the probable defense or weak points in the government's position. The overriding problem in presenting the prosecution's case is the inability on the part of the government to establish a solid motive on the part of Jeffrey R. MacDonald for having committed these murders. Perhaps the single best explanation is that the government can present as to why those murders were in fact committed by MacDonald was in fact a family dispute that began for some reason, for some unknown purpose, and continued until a blow was struck by someone. MacDonald may have attacked Colette. Jeffrey MacDonald may have been attacked by Colette, which would have led him to strike back at either Colette or Kimberly, which was an unnecessary amount of force, but an amount of force that as physically fit as he was, with his knowledge of boxing, may have resulted in a severe injury. As the battle continued, all rationale was lost, and it's finally culminated in death for either Colette or Kimberly, with the other at the near death. At this point, in view of the psychological makeup of Jeffrey R. MacDonald and his sense of self-preservation and personal ego, he conceived that there was no one out for him except to kill the remaining member of his family, specifically Kristen. From the location of the bloodstains, it is imperative at some point both Colette and Kimberly were in Kristen's bedroom or either dead in the sheet, or possibly Colette was trying to protect her last living daughter, MacDonald, having recently read the articles of concerning bizarre killings, could thereby stage and set up and conceive the entire story that has been related to this day. The above is a hypothetical theory about the government, and the government has no concrete facts with which to prove the same. Jeffrey MacDonald's defense is going to be that his character precludes him from committing the crime this time. A crime of this type. The defense will further suggest that the hippie story was not. The defense will further suggest that the hippie story was not sufficiently investigated, and it is conceivable that the events actually occurred as MacDonald generally testified. MacDonald will no doubt try to show that the integrity of the crime scene was destroyed and that the evidence was tampered with by the military police investigators. There is evidence that one of the MPs in the bedroom picked up the telephone by using his thumb and index finger and immediately told to put it down. MacDonald's own personal wallet was stolen and subsequently found near the hospital. MacDonald will claim that there are 30 unidentified latent fingerprints in the house. However, there are no prints or any piece of evidence which are unidentified. A military police sergeant, upon entering the apartment, observed that the bureau drawers in the master bedroom were open. The photographer showed that the drawers were closed. The flower pot in the living room apparently was lying on its side when the MPs arrived. The ambulance driver picked up the flower pot, set it on its base. The driver then sat on the couch until ordered to move, and at one time, a dozen MPs, CID, and medical personnel were wandering through the apartment. It will be real easy for the defense to attack the government's failure to preserve the crime scene. MacDonald will also raise the issue of the wax found on the arm of the old chair in Kimberly's room, and indicating the presence of intruders. The wax was old and dried and similar to a birthday candle wax, and is not remarkable in any view of the fact that the MacDonald residence contained 17 candles. MacDonald will then try to show that he was deeply involved in the drug scene at Fort Bragg and surrounding communities, and that the hippies may have singled him out as an informer. Well, if that's true, if they could, if all these hippies knew about Jeffrey R. MacDonald yet, one of their own, Helena Stokely, was a damn informant for Prince Beasley, a detective down there over there in Fayetteville, North Carolina. They knew about him, but not her being an informant. The stories just don't match if you listen to Helena Stokely's interview with Ted Gunderson and Prince Beasley, and then you listen to his story. They don't match up. And neither one of them damn sure match up with the evidence found by the CID. The only argument to refute this is that if they came to kill MacDonald, then why didn't they kill him? Why did they kill his entire family but leave him alive? If they came looking for drugs, why didn't they take the hypodermic needles and various pills that were in the linen closets? Exactly. Okay, just found my place. Evidence will be presented, no doubt, to show that MacDonald was a literally loving father to his children. MacDonald will offer testimony that the jewelry box in the master bedroom is rifled with and 2 heirloom rings were still missing. The defense will also try to substantiate that the bodies of Colette and Kimberly were removed by medical examiners at the crime scene. There will no doubt be an effort to impeach all witnesses of the Army Criminal Investigation Division and, to some degree, the efforts of the prosecutors themselves as being overzealous and eager to almost go to the extent of fabricating evidence in order to crucify Jeffrey R. MacDonald. The evidence will contend that with the exception of the piece of wood, the other 3 murder weapons have not been identified within the MacDonald house since the Article 32 hearing. It has been learned that from MacDonald's friend, Captain Ronald Harrison, that on Thanksgiving 1969, he was in the MacDonald apartment during Thanksgiving of 69, and was attempting to chip some ice when MacDonald said, "Where's the ice pick?" and he left to look for the ice pick. MacDonald's father-in-law, Alfred Kassab, remembers that the family having an ice pick when they lived in Princeton, New Jersey. One prosecution theory is that MacDonald placed the pajama shirt over his wife and stabbed her, but the defense will argue, as they did the Article 32 hearing, that there was no fibers from the shirt from the pajama top in Colette's wounds. Another prosecution theory is that MacDonald's wounds were self-inflicted, but the defense doctors will say that MacDonald could not have known the medical consequences of a self-inflicted injury such as wounding his lung. There's no evidence of that MacDonald ever treated his wife and children with any form of and that they'll contend that there was no evidence that known that he hit Colette or the children, and in view of the psychiatric test made on MacDonald and his previously known history for sanity, he does not appear to be a person that would become temporarily insane, kill his family, and then regain sanity. At present, there is no evidence of insanity in MacDonald's background. The defense will argue that no one has known MacDonald would ever say that he was that type or would burst out with a torrent of violence. Basically, the defense will argue that no one who has known MacDonald would ever say that he was the type that would burst out in a torrent of violence. The killing was inconsistent for someone with MacDonald's personality. At the Article 32 hearing, MacDonald had several witnesses, including his father-in-law, Alfred Kassab, who has testified that he simply wasn't that type and wouldn't commit that act. Mr. Kassab has now switched sides, and this may in fact weaken MacDonald's defense. The defense has already argued the unidentified fingerprints on the kitchen cabinet on the counter near where the utensils were kept could have belonged to one of the assailants. At the Article 32 hearing, the defense argued that one of the murder weapons, a knife, was abused and showed on its surface if it had been scraped against concrete or a sidewalk and would not have been a conventional kitchen knife. There are discrepancies between MacDonald's story on the 6th of April when compared this testimony to the Article 32 hearing, but the defense argued that this was normal since April 6th, as his reconstruction of events was spontaneous, and by the time of the Article 32 hearing, he had thought out the events and was better able to recall what happened. One of the government's prosecution theories is that since MacDonald was alive and his family was dead, he must have done the killings. This is an idea easy for the defense to attack. The fact that Kimberly's blood was found on the Esquire magazine in the living room serves to refute MacDonald's story of the events that occurred in the apartment, yet on the other hand, it is easy for the defense to say that her blood ended up on the magazine as a result of contamination from the weapons carried by the intruders into the living room. A strong point in the government's case would be the evidence regarding the location of numerous fibers from MacDonald's pajama top under Colette's body, but the defense will argue Colette's body was being moved, the fibers being dropped under her body from the torn shirt. Some of the government evidence has been discarded. MacDonald's pajama pants were disposed of by the Walmart Army Hospital. Human skin was found under Colette's fingernails, but this evidence has been lost. A flower jewelry box located in Colette's dresser in the east bedroom has reddish-brown stains inside, and one latent fingerprint and one latent palm print are both unidentified. MacDonald claims that 2 rings are missing from this box, and that his assailants took them. Apparently, the hairs found in Colette's right hand have not been identified. This evidence would aid the defense. There's some question regarding how conclusive the CID lab report in its is. There's some question to how conclusive the CID report is in regard to its origin of the blue threads at one time. There's some question regarding how conclusive the CID lab report is in its regard to the origins of the blue fibers and threads at one time. At one time, a government witness said that the fibers and threads could have come from the pajama top. The Article 32 hearing officer felt that the lack of fingerprints on the kitchen telephone could be explained because MacDonald may have washed his hands immediately before using the telephone. I'm not sure how plausible this theory is, since I'm not an expert. The Article 32 hearing officer believed MacDonald's story. He was impressed by the numerous unidentified fingerprints on the premises, wax from an unknown candle, apparently not from the MacDonald household, the unidentified blonde hair in the right hand of Colette, the reddish-brown stains in the interior of the jewelry box of the east bedroom, which an unidentified finger and palm print and no evidence that the two knives and the ice pick apparently used in the murders came from the apartment. These facts may also impress a jury. Conclusions and recommendations. Okay, well, before that, let me just say, the Article 32 hearing officer believed MacDonald's story. Okay, together with the unidentified finger and palm print and no evidence that the two knives and the aspect apparently used in the murders came from the apartment, these facts also may impress a jury. The fact, conclusions, and recommendations. I'm convinced that Jeffrey MacDonald brutally murdered his wife and two children during the late evening, early morning hours of February 16th through 17th, 1970, but I'm afraid we will not be able to convict him. In my opinion, we can only get to a jury with this case. In my opinion, we can get to a jury with this case, but there is no more than a 20 to 30% chance of actually obtaining a conviction. The government lacks solid motive on the part of MacDonald for the commission of these acts. The government therefore must present a totally hypothetical motive and then substitute this motive with the enormous amount of circumstantial evidence and negative character in an effort to provide a positive premise. MacDonald's all-American boy image impressed the Article 32 hearing officer can be challenged better by the government at this time than it was done at the previous hearing. We now have the additional evidence in regard to the MacDonald experimental activities that would be helpful. In particular, the evidence relating to MacDonald's childhood sweetheart, Carol Larson, who was seen kissing him at Long Island Station a few months before the murders, could add a lot to this case. The Army CID have been reluctant to interview and investigate the girl to date. This really should be done. My first assistant, Weldon Holwell, will evaluates this case on a 50-50 chance of getting to the jury and does not speculate on what a jury would do after hearing all the evidence. I am sure that those persons who review this case will not agree on its chance for success. I place a 20-30% chance for conviction, but yet, if we were to get a reasonably intelligent jury, they may be convinced by all the scientific evidence, lab studies, etc., that the government has, which were not presented at the Article 32 hearing. There is no doubt that the additional lab studies, such as the FBI report showing MacDonald's pajama shirt had some of his wife's blood on it before it was torn, would help our case. The government should present a more specific scientific approach to showing that Captain MacDonald, or former Captain MacDonald, committed these crimes than was done at the Article 32 hearing. This may be enough to convince a jury, but yet this evidence may be more than which can be comprehend. This evidence may be more than which they can comprehend. This case is now over 3 years old. This case alone will hurt us. I'm not sure if all our witnesses are still available. Seems like a real tragedy for the government not to bring MacDonald to trial. He has committed these murders and should really have a jury of his peers determine his guilt or innocence. Yet this case was given so much publicity that if we bring it to trial 3.5 years later after the murder, we are going to be charged with prosecution, I cannot help but feel that if this case was tried, it would probably end with a hung jury. Our case does not have enough strength now that we will convince some persons of his guilt, but I'm not sure we can convince all 12. This case could certainly be better organized and presented in a more effective manner than was done at the Article 32 hearing. I do not intend to criticize the government prosecutors of that hearing, as they were faced with an unusual situation in view of the amount of proof beyond a reasonable doubt required by the hearing officer. The government investigators' failure to preserve the crime scene may be the most damaging aspect to our case. The living room area of the MacDonald apartment appears to be clearly staged, but we lose the effect of this evidence when the defendants points to 4 or 5 admitted instances of the government agents disturbing the crime scene upon their entry. I sincerely hope that when the Justice Department elevates this case, it will be given a better chance for success. I would like to see this murderer brought to trial, but I am still afraid we will lose. I think the chances for success might be higher if we could put a team together of expert criminal trial attorneys from my office and the Justice Department. I only have 2 experienced trial attorneys on my staff, and if the department decides this case should be tried, it would be vital that we receive help. In fact, it would be best for the department to assign an experienced attorney to be in charge of this prosecution. This case will require at least a month to try and several months of intensive pre-trial preparation. Most of my staff at present are inexperienced attorneys, and I could not afford to let our regular case work fall by the wayside while we prosecute MacDonald. The only assistant available in my office could be in charge of that case, such as this would be my first assistant, Weldon Hallwell. His services are too vital in that regard to training our new assistants. He could participate in such a case as the MacDonald case, but I would rather that he not be in charge. In short, if the department decides to bring this case to trial, we would be willing to prosecute. However, without the assistance of an experienced department trial attorney, we would have to decline to prosecute this case. It might seem unusual to devote so much time to what I classify as a losing proposition, but when one undertakes an extensive review of this case, as I have done over the past several months, and became convinced that the murderer will escape punishment, it is hard to stop working. I hope I have given you a fairly thorough review of my evaluation. This memorandum only begins to review the evidence. I will be glad to make myself available for any further discussions concerning this case. And that was a memorandum by Thomas P. McNamara, basically saying that it's circumstantial, but there is stuff that's been brought to light, and that Jeffrey MacDonald pretty much made deceptive statements on the 6th of April 1970 and during the Article 32 hearings during the summer of 70.